The part on it, a technician is taken out to remove it from the airplane. We don't warehouse parts here. They're just left on the airplane until they're needed. The technician will then remove it from the aircraft, bring it in, beds check it, and if it is airworthy, and after the check arrives, nothing goes out here for free. After the check arrives, then it is shipped off to the using unit. Just take a look at these F-16 sitting here in the brown bag. I'll speak a little bit about them a little bit later on. And then storage is a big mission here. Many of the aircraft you see are still current and still operational, but they are stored here. As a result of sequestration, the Air Force and Navy were required to reduce, to decommission a number of units, and their aircraft are here awaiting the regeneration of those units or recommissioning of those units, in which case they can be brought out of storage and go back to work. And then finally, disposal. When an aircraft is beyond economical repair, when there's no possibility it will ever return to the sky, when it can no longer surrender any usable parts to other aircraft that are still on active duty, the Weapons System Program Manager, incidentally, none of these aircraft are owned by AMARC. They're all owned by the Weapons System Program Manager, as you'd probably perceive. And we'll talk a little bit about that white stuff that's covering most of them as we get over to the wash rack. Now we're approaching the gate which demarks the difference between Davis-Monthan Air Force Base and its subordinate chunk, AMARC, or the Boneyard actually. Aircraft on your right, it looks like a 707, and you note that it's painted up in the colors of the 89th Wing, which is a VIP wing at Andrews Air Force Base, Maryland. Back in the day, back in the early 60s, the Military Air Transport Service, which was a combined command charged with the responsibility of strategic logistics support, was complaining and whining bitterly because we were expected to do a jet age mission with propeller-driven airplanes, mostly C-124s and C-118s. We have an example of each of these out in our yard. You might want to take a look at them. About this time, instructors sat side by side. Normally they sit fore and aft. I don't know how that would work out. I've never been in a training situation with this particular airplane, but when I was in pilot school, my instructor spent a good bit of his time whacking me on the back of the head with a roll-up 781 form, so I don't know how that side-by-side thing would work too well. On your left is a J-Stars. This is a 707 aircraft. The airplane is almost irrelevant. What is relevant is that boxy-shaped object underneath it, which is a very high-definition radar. The mission of this system is to old Navy patrol aircraft. Note that this is a piston engine aircraft. It has two R3350s engines that stands for radial engines of 3,350 cubic inch displacement, about 3,000 horsepower. This was a capable old airplane. It flew for a number of years. One of my friends, Navy friends who flew these things, tells me that the Navy just kept packing more and more stuff on it. They wanted to fly a jet, so it was not a commercial success. As a result, the Navy was able to pick up these at a very, very good price. These two are similar. The first one you see called an NP. If you look at the vertical stabilizer, that's the part of the tail that goes up. In front of that, you'll see a kind of an odd-shaped radar antenna, and so this aircraft was charged with the mission of tracking re-entry vehicles. They either test weaponry, big tester stored inside up in Nevada. They don't do too well on the hot desert sun. On your left, the T-43 Gator. This was a navigator trainer. That's clever. That's got its clever name. Back in the day, this flew out of Mather Air Force Base and trained a number of navigators. And navigators were like economists. If there were 6 of them, you get 6 different positions. But that career field no longer exists in the Air Force, so that program has been terminated, and the aircraft has been returned here. This is very much like a 737. That's off to your left. On your right, an F-4C model. When the F-4 first came out, it was initially a Navy design. It was later adopted by the Air Force as well. When the first ones came out, the powers that be determined that it was to an empty space and desert. Okay, the A3 on your right, this is called a whale by the Navy guys. This is the largest of the carrier-based aircraft. It started out life as a nuclear weapons delivery system. It morphed into an electronic warfare aircraft and served for a number of years in that role. Its counterpart in the Air Force was the B-66 here. We won't get a chance to go by that. This was an Navy attack aircraft. The funny-looking snout coming out of the front is the Navy's concept of air refueling. With the Navy and the Marine Corps, in-flight refueling is accomplished by dragging a long rubber hose behind the refueler with a basket-shaped object on the end of it, and the pilot of the receiving aircraft would maneuver his airplane into the position in our gallery that you might want to go take a look at. It really looks nice. It's painted up in the colors of the Kitty Hawk. The reason there are so few of those, these have been chopped up already, is because back in the day when we were on somewhat more amicable relations with Iran, we sold a bunch of these to the Iranians, the other side of Kol, out of the real graveyard part. Now the 130 that you see coming up next on our left is the only aircraft, to my knowledge, that has ever been awarded a decoration. Probably the only, no, I'm sorry, I got the wrong one. This is a Navy drone carrier. This carried up to 6 drones aloft, and then lots of drones, and Navy fighter pilots would practice making approaches on that one. My understanding of the garish paint job on this is that most transports pilots have a somewhat limited, have an opinion of a somewhat limited intellectual capability of fighter pilots. So apparently the 130 pilots wanted to make sure the fighter pilots knew damn well which was the drone and which was the carrier. On your right, the F-16. This is a frontline fighter used extensively in both close air support and as air superiority. And this particular one was an ES-3A, this electronic warfare version of the E-3, which was a anti-submarine aircraft. And next to it, the 3 little helicopters you see sitting here. The first one, the easternmost one, with the larger fuselage, is the Iroquois. Nobody ever calls it Iroquois. These are Hueys, because they're designated HU-1B. That was a transport aircraft that the Army used to insert troops into the battle area and extract them therefrom. As you could appreciate, in that process, it was somewhat vulnerable because it made a very, very good target. In order to ameliorate that difficulty to a degree, the Army anti-submarine aircraft, which are capable of detecting and also attacking submarines. The C-1 on your left, on the other side of the C-12, is a COD airplane that's carrier on board delivery aircraft. It was a logistics support aircraft the Navy used for carrier support. If you were stationed on an aircraft carrier, this is the airplane that brought your beans and bullets and letters from your sweetheart, and if you're lucky, your replacement. Now, a very similar aircraft is on your right. The airframe is almost exactly the same, but this is the submarine hunter-killer version. This was the Navy's first airplane that was capable of detecting and attacking submarines. Its replacement is on your left, the S-3. This is also an anti-submarine aircraft, similar in roles and missions, but jet-powered, somewhat faster and somewhat more capable. And then the last airplane on Celebrity Row is an OV-1. This is one of the funnier-looking airplanes you can come across. This was an Army observation aircraft. All that area around the bulbous cockpit area that's covered in spray lat was glass. So as you can probably appreciate, this thing is really cells are so encased. Smaller ones are locked up in those containers, and then the containers are pressurized with an inert cold gas, usually nitrogen, and it'll be preserved for about ever. Some of them are sitting out in the open, and on these engines, the precious or dangerous parts have been removed and they will be scrapped. The 6 conical-shaped objects on your right as we go by are nacelles and engines from a C-99. The C-99 was the cargo version of the B-36 nuclear bomber. Those engines are R-4360, that's radial engines of 4,360 cubic inch displacement, and that would be about 3,500 horsepower. On your right, you see a group of F-16s. They are C and D models. They are so old and they have been supplanted by newer models, so they have relatively little value as foreign military sales objects. These aircraft, as days go by, are being regenerated, and they're returned to the position, the system they had when they came in here, but not being enhanced, and they're flown to a contractor in Florida where he is converting them, that contractor is converting them to drones, and they will serve as drones over the Gulf of Mexico until they're washed. If they're Navy or Marine Corps Airport, they'll wash several times. The fuel, and well, that's because they would have salt on it. It takes more than one washing to get them off. It didn't mean to make an in-service crack there. But I will if you want me to. And then the fuel is drained from them. The engines are removed if they're going to be. As you would probably expect, working outside out here at 110 degrees during the summertime can be a little daunting. The C5, the group of C5s on your right are Category 1000 aircraft, and they are just awaiting for recommissioning of their units. Now, as we turn the corner here, the aircraft that you will see on the right side of the bus are destined for some other museum someplace. And when the check arrives, they will in due course be moved, usually by truck, to another museum. Those of you that are in general aviation see a bunch of Cessna 377s, Cessna Mixmasters over on your right. We'd love to get your hands on one of those, but Amark no longer sells to the general public. We're crossing now over Kolb Road. This is the main north-south artery here in Tucson, and everything on the east side of Kolb Road has seen the sky for its last time. It will never be regenerated. These are only parts houses, and you can see this group of pathetic-looking KC-135s on your right, and they've given up a number of their parts to some of their active duty counterparts. Kmart has a very extensive wood shop, and they can box up and crate just about anything you can imagine. They can also make supports for these aircraft. You could probably appreciate that landing gear are a high-use item, so many of these have given up their landing gear. Now, I promised you another look at a B-57. Look over to your right there, about 100 yards off of the 130 yards off of this. This is an RB-57F model. This is a high. Those are operated for that. Those aircraft with the 58th Weather Recon Squadron at Curlin Air Force Base, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now we're coming up on our right with a group of B-1s, and if you look down the row, you'll find one of them, I think in this first row here, that still has its nose cone on it, and you can appreciate the aesthetics of the aircraft as it's supposed to look. Yeah, there it is. The second one in, second or third one in. Now, as you can probably appreciate, the Air National Guard and the Air Force Reserve are essential components of the national defense posture. We're coming by a bunch of C5s now. We're coming up with a bunch of C5s now that served, many of them apparently with a Memphis unit. And now they are continuing to serve, but only as parts houses. In a few moments, we'll pass by what looks like a wing from a medium-sized aircraft sitting on wooden stands on the ground. This is, in fact, a horizontal stabilizer from the C5, which sits right behind it. Somewhere along the line, a C5 biffed the horizontal stabilizer, and in due course, this thing will be boxed up and shipped off to return one of its colleagues to active duty again. And they tell me they can box that thing up. It's going to be quite a box. Now, as we come around this group of 810s, which are in the process of being dismantled, you can see in the far distance a group of B-52 bombers just sitting on the good earth out there. Those airplanes have been whacked apart by a large guillotine-shaped object as an element of the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty. And here's our lab, Marine Corps aircraft. My gosh, it's still here. Now, when an aircraft no longer has any possibility of being regenerated, or there is no longer any possibility that it can give up any critical parts to other flying aircraft, and then it is transferred from the program system manager to the Defense Logistic Agency, and the Defense Logistic Agency in turn locates a contractor and sells the